This meeting of the Norwood City Council is hereby called to order. Please rise for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in these council chambers. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Whittington.
Here.
Ms. Allen. Mr. Thornberry.
Here.
Mr. Sanker.
Here.
Mr. Mumper.
Here.
We have 6 of the 7 members present. We will go ahead and proceed. We have several requests to amend the agenda. The first is to add, under K, introductory readings of ordinances. We would add an ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2014 and declaring an emergency. There are 2 letters from the Health Department regarding community development block grant funds, one for the Norwood Youth Dental Services and one for the drug screening for substance abuse. And I propose that we perhaps deal with those after the public hearing is closed. And then there is a letter from Jerry Stoker regarding Planning Commission recommendations and the need for a public hearing that we would add under Communication 2. What is your pleasure? Mr. Thornberry.
We amend the agenda as stated.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Move on to minutes of the previous meeting. We have minutes of September the 9th as well as September the 23rd. They were distributed in your packets. Mr. Clark.
Move to approve the minutes as of read.
Seconded by Mr. Thornberry. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll now move to the public hearing. I will declare the regular meeting closed, and we will open a public hearing. This is a public hearing to discuss our application for community development block grant funds for the years 2015, 2016, and 2017. This first public hearing is just a general discussion where we can take suggestions from folks or talk about the current funding and whether just pretty much in general. The next public hearing that we'll have 2 weeks from now, I think, is when we will get into generalities about where we specifically want to put the money and how much. But I will declare this public hearing open. If anyone wishes to speak about our community development block grant funds and our applications, I'm asked that you would please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak about the use of our community development block grant funds? Okay. Would you like to read the letters as part of the public hearing?
Mrs. Donna M. Lake and members of council, City of Norwood, 4645 Montgomery Road, Norwood, Ohio 45212. RE, public hearing on community development block grant for 2015, 2016, 2017 funding cycle. Dear Mrs. Lake and members of council, on behalf of the Norwood Board of Health and the Norwood City Health Department, I would like to express interest in the continued funding of the Norwood Youth Dental Services. I am expressing my interest in writing as I will not be able to attend the public hearing. We are requesting $10,000 per each fiscal year, FY 2015, FT 2016, and FY 2017, for a total of $30,000 for the complete funding cycle. I have provided Exhibit A stating the scope of services that have been provided in previous funding from the Community Development Block Grant. I have provided Exhibit B, which is the approximate budget for each fiscal year. Also enclosed is an Excel spreadsheet which provides statistics of the numbers of students who use the youth dental services based on the last grant cycling fund. The Community Development Block Grant funds have been useful in providing dental services for those students who cannot afford dental care. In 2011, there were 455 students who participated in this service and 401 students, or 89%, who qualified for services using grant funds. In 2012, there were 429 students who participated in this service, and in 2013, there were 371 students who participated. Due to income guideline changes, all students of the last 2 years were qualified. This service, however, is available to all students regardless of income levels. For those students who do not meet the financial criteria, the Norwood Health Department assumes monetary responsibility for their treatment. The number of students using the Norwood Youth Dental Services remains consistent and is important to the students of Norwood. Thank you in advance for your continued support. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Frank D. Perino, MD, Interim Health Commissioner.
I would suggest that that just be entered as part of the public hearing record. And would you like to read the next one?
October 13, 2014, to Norwood City Council. RE request for funding from Community Development Block Grant. Dear council members, the Norwood City Health Department, in cooperation with the Norwood City School District, has implemented a screening program for substance abuse for the 2014-15 school year. The SBIRT, Screening Brief Intervention and Referral to Treatment program, was funded for 1 year with a grant received from Interact for Health. The SBIRT screening conducted by a health department public health nurse has been integrated in the students' annual school health screenings, which checks vision, hearing, and scoliosis, and is completed by school health staff. The current SBIRT funding will end in April 2015. The Norwood Health Department and the Norwood City Schools would like to continue SBIRT to help prevent substance abuse in our Norwood youth and to aid in directing children and families to appropriate treatment when needed. We are requesting $5,000 per year to cover the expenses of the public health nurse participation in the completion of the screenings. Thank you for your consideration in funding this important program. We look forward to continuing to help the youth of Norwood and our community. Respectfully, Chandra A. Corbin, RN, BSN, Nursing Director.
Will just be entered as part of the public health record. Again, I would just ask, is there anyone else who wishes to speak about funding for our Community Development Block Grant, funding for the next 3 fiscal years? If not, I will declare this public hearing closed. We will move on to requests to address council items on our council on agenda items, and we do have one, Margaret Waymeyer, who wishes to discuss the ordinance authorizing the mayor and safety service director to enter into an amended easement agreement, excuse me, with Regent Realty LLC and declaring an emergency. Would you like to come forward, Ms. Waymeyer? Excuse me.
Thank you. The title of this ordinance is for an amended easement agreement with the city and Regent Realty LLC. What does this amendment involve and or change of the original city granted easement? Why is it necessary? Where is it located? And for what purpose is the amendment? I'd just like some clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waymeyer. I think your questions will likely be answered as we consider the ordinance. There is a cover to it, so we will be able to address that later in the meeting. I'll move on to reports of standing committees of council. The first is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Sanker.
Thank you, Madam President. We are Committee on Finance and Claims. This committee report was dated 9/30/2014 to the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio. We, your Committee of Finance and Claims, to who was referred 2014 appropriations and police cruisers. beg leave to submit the following report. The committee recommends changes listed on Exhibit A, changes to 010310 Clerk of Courts, 010620 Earnings Tax, 012110 Retirees Healthcare, 012111 C9 Trust, 012321 Outside Legal Fees, 020852 Street Fund, and 010820 Building Department, 46-0010 Capital Project Fund, 50-0853 Water Fund be approved and the appropriation be changed. We also recommend the purchase of the 3 police cruisers per the quote received from Chief Kramer, and the ordinances be prepared. Respectfully submitted, Joe Sanker, Chairperson, Mr. John Mumper, Mr. Steve Thornberry, and Mr. Tom Whittington.
Mr. Mumper.
I move the committee report be accepted.
Second by Mr. Whittington. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Madam President, real quick.
I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Sanker.
On the Exhibit A that was submitted on the back of there was one change. There was one line item that was listed as all zeros, which was a typographical error. And that line item was on Fund 90, the Rookwood Service Pay, and that showed a zero in there, but actually it was $273,066.36, and that was what actually would be on the actual Exhibit A that should have been submitted with just a typographical error that listed the zeros here. Clarification.
We will make those changes prior to
Yeah.
consideration. Thank you. Motion on the floor is to approve the committee report. Is there any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Next is the community development report. Mr. Thornberry.
Thank you, Madam President. This community development report dated 10/6/2014 to the Honorable Council, City of Norwood, Ohio. We, your Committee of Community Development, to whom was referred the proposed business at Ross and Section Avenue regarding a presentation from Reliant Medical and also the Ellesmere Community Garden Park. Beg leave to submit the following report. Representatives from Nair Properties and from JLL Developers presented details of the recently approved development of the Reliant Medical Center. The committee voted to approve the CRA request, the Community Reinvestment
Act.
Request, and send on to the full council for approval. Assistant Law Director Chris Brown and Contract Planner Greg Oros presented the most recent plans for the Ellesmere Community Gardens. Estimates are that the project will be 80% complete by mid-November, weather permitting.
Mr. Sanker.
Madam President, I recommend that the committee report be received and filed.
Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to the second reading of ordinances. The first is an ordinance to establish a stormwater assessment under the Ohio EPS NPDS general permit and declaring an emergency. There is a cover to the ordinance, and Jennifer Vader is here if you have questions of her as well. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Would you like Ms. Vader to come, Mr. Sanker?
Madam President, yes, I would request if we could to have Jennifer Batter give a brief explanation of the process that's going to take place with the stormwater assessment.
Thank you, Ms. Vader.
Evening, Council. This is on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Jennifer Vader with JMA Consultants. And the ordinance that you have before you is to establish stormwater assessments for, I believe I should say, at least on the agenda, I have it says Ohio EPS, and I believe it's Ohio EPA, NPDES general permit. Up until, well, you still are, the city is still a member of the Hamilton County Stormwater District. You have been a member since about 2003, I believe. And at the end of last year, or the very beginning of this year, I'm not sure exactly when, but council voted to separate from the district and take on that permitting yourself. It's our opinion in the communities we work with that that's very doable for a city, especially for Norwood. You're fairly unique in that you have probably 99% combined sewers. So a lot of the inspections and rules and regulations really do not apply to most of your development sites because you know, it's all going to a combined sewer, all that water. So what the city decided to do was to get out of that district, handle it yourself. Currently, all of your properties in the city are assessed via the Hamilton County Stormwater District on their property bill, as I'm sure you're aware of. These assessments that you have that would be adopted by this ordinance are the same assessment from 2012 that were paid in 2013. So it's just a little bit less than actually what all of the property owners are paying today. For example, I think an average single-family unit is $6.97 per year, and what this assessment would be is $6.76 per year. So it's a very minor you know, reduction, but it is not as much. And I'm not sure, Hamilton County Stormwater District has been raising those rates. I'm not sure what their 2014 rates to be paid in 2015 are. I'm not sure of that. This probably just came out. So that is it in a nutshell. The EPA requirement, the permit, there are 6 minimum control measures that the city has to meet. We will create a stormwater master plan. So that is the reason for the assessments, because there is the city has to come up with its own stormwater master plan to submit to the OEPA so that they will provide you with the permit. That we have to meet those requirements. There's public education, and we will be administering that for the city. Submit the annual report every year and make sure that the city is in compliance with that permit. So that's the reason for the assessment. It's not just all the administrative costs, though. The chunk of that money from the assessments you could actually put into a fund for capital improvements for stormwater, which has not been done as a member of the Hamilton County Stormwater District. All of that money has pretty much been going just to keep the city in compliance, but you have not been able to reap the benefits of those dollars for capital improvements up to this point. So, you know, in discussions with the administration, it seems like a win-win for the city.
Does anyone have questions of this matter? Mr. Thornberry?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I don't know if this is within your purview, but when you say that we have 99% combined systems, just to be clear for everybody listening, none of this is in any way to try to change that situation. I mean, that's clearly a situation that we are, for lack of a better word, stuck with. It's just managing it.
Correct. You know, that's a very big picture. There, I think on some maybe road project we have done some stormwater separation where we have separated storm from sanitary, but still, to this point, somewhere it's going to a combined sewer outfall and not to a true stormwater outfall at this point. So that's correct.
Mr. Thornberry?
And to follow up on that, how does this relate to the work that's been going on for the last decade all around the city on the work underneath the streets that's just upgrading the systems?
Right. If there's been, you know, trouble, if there have been drainage problems on streets that we have tried to correct, that drainage, you know, that's all been a part. I think all of the projects just about that we have done have been through a state capital improvement program grant, where we've been able to pay for that. Now, you know, how that relates, I guess, is that you could, if you know, decide to put this money in escrow into a fund, you could use that money then towards part of your match, you know, for those grants, because it would be specifically for stormwater improvements. And that's quite a bit It gets pretty expensive when you're talking about.
Mr. Whittington?
So are these fees that Hamilton County has been covering, that we've been contributing to, is that also for maintenance of the system if something goes wrong?
Currently, the fees that all of your property owners have been paid have all gone to the Hamilton County Stormwater District, all just to keep you in compliance with this OEPA permit. So it really has not gone to the maintenance of your stormwater system as far as any capital improvements. They've all gone to just meet the requirements of that permit, basically paperwork, for the most part.
Okay.
And a mapping of your system. We have yet to get those documents. We have requested them, and we will continue to request them. But that is part of the permit. One thing is to map your entire stormwater system, so all of the catch basins, all the manholes, where everything is connected. We have not seen, how far they've come in that mapping. I'm hoping it's very far because the city has paid a lot of them for that.
Mr. Thornberry?
And to follow up on that, clearly your job then will be to keep us in compliance.
Absolutely, yes.
Could you address, I know that different size lots have different amounts, so for those who are not at 676, you can explain why?
Right. There is a formula, and again, what we believed in discussions, only made sense was to just continue that same formula. So the same way the county has, decided to assess properties, these assessments are based on that same formula. So I believe that the square footage for that, for example, $6.97 per year, I have it here, is a house which is based on the average size of, hard impervious surface of about 3,300 square feet. So, a house that only has 1,600 square feet, I believe, is half of that, and then above that, I think they assess it at 1.4. So they call that 697 is kind of the base of the SFU. They call it the single family unit. And then for commercial properties, the impervious surface was measured, and then it's based on that, times that amount, for that. And then for, duplexes, multifamily, it's like at 0.4 single family units. So there is a formula. It's based on, generally based on impervious surface, hard surface. Yeah.
Larger lots, larger concrete, pay more
Absolutely.
because of stormwater runoff. Mr. Thornberry?
And to follow up on that formula remains the same?
Yes, the formula remains the same.
And
Yes.
will it generally conform to whatever the county is doing, or moving forward, how will that differ, or what options, or?
We've talked that we will look at that and address that, as the city sees fit. If you feel that your, improvements and you need needs to be raised or lowered, either way, you can certainly do that. You can reduce that single family unit and do that as you see fit. For this first step, to do it the first time, it seemed to absolutely make sense. And that way it seems to be fair. Everybody is the same, as you continue. You can certainly, this is going to be under your purview now, so you can certainly change that. And I think it will be, reviewed and addressed every year as to see how the EPA changes the requirements of the permit, how difficult, or if they're trying to make it easier, things like that, to see how much, administrative work needs to be done, and then how much you would like to put towards capital improvements. So that's certainly up to you.
Any other questions of Ms. Vedder? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think the urgency of this, the auditor's deadline is the end of September to absolutely guarantee that you get it on the January tax bill. And I spoke to them last week, and they thought that if we got it down there, within the next couple of weeks, after that they should be able to get it down. So I think that is the kind of the thrust of getting it done quickly. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
We'll now move to consideration of the ordinance. It's your pleasure. Mr. Mumford?
I move we have a second and third reading.
Seconded by Mr. Thornberry. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumford?
Yes.
All members present voting aye. The motion carries. Please have the second and third readings.
Ordinance to establish stormwater assessments under the Ohio EPA NPDES general permit and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to establish stormwater assessments under the Ohio EPA NPDES general permit and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes, Madam President, I move that the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to the second ordinance, which is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Hamilton County Development Company to administer the Urban Land Assistance Grant and declaring an emergency. And there is a cover sheet on your desks explaining what this is. You look perplexed, Mr. Thornberry. ULPA
I'm
grant,
just trying to
Section
find
Avenue
the
and
cover
Carthage
letter.
Avenue. Mr. Sanker.
Madam President, I recommend we have the second and third reading of this ordinance and also have the mayor give an explanation of this cleanup process down on Carthage Avenue.
Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. As you know, it's 5425 Carthage Avenue. There was a body shop there. At one time, there was an exterminator there, and I think Mr. Lake was involved in that cleanup. That property was demolished. We got that taken down in the house next door. The owner died and passed away, and the lot has become going to be turned over to the city. We, of course, would not accept a parcel of property that has any possibility. Why would we want to hear or take possession of property that's contaminated that costs us thousands of dollars to clean up? So this basically, it provides the funding for that. SRW will do the work to assess it, and it goes along with the same thing where we had $30,000 to remove the gas tanks from the old gas station at Wayne and Section. So this is just one of those things where we get this property cleaned up and abated, then it can be developed if we so desire. We can either donate it or have somebody make a proposal to purchase it from us. So this is just another step into getting that property remediated so we don't assume any liability for it.
So the motion on the floor then is to have the second and third readings. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have the second and third readings.
Ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Hamilton County Development Company to administer the Urban Land Assistance Grant and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Hamilton County Development Company to administer the Urban Land Assistance Grant and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper.
Move the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Sanker. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to the third ordinance, which is an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or safety service director to enter into an amended easement agreement with Regent Realty LLC and declaring an emergency. And there is a cover sheet on the ordinance again, which explains the lease of the property to School Outfitters is along the track that runs the edge of South Lexington and Ellesmere, and School Outfitters has requested to lease this property, which is now vacant and grown up with weeds, and they will use it for parking purposes. Mr. Thornberry.
Yes, Madam President, I move that we have the second and third reading of said ordinance.
Seconded by Mr. Sanker. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sanker.
Madam President, on this one as well, we could maybe have the mayor give a little explanation to may explain the additional property that this will include to kind of answer Mrs. Waymeyer's questions from earlier.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure, as you know, School Schoolhouse Outfitters has been there for a number of years when it was that old vacant factory, and they moved in there, and they keep expanding and expanding. And as you know, we've leased part of Lexington Avenue between Regent and Hazel. There's this strip of weeds and stuff just on the other side of that. And in order for them to do the improvements to it, clear it off, resurface it, and park on there, they're growing so fast, and we want to do everything we can to keep them there. So, because it's been a really important asset to the city, and especially for that area, considering that building was in such bad shape when they moved in. So this is just another way of us trying to help them out by letting them lease a piece of ground so they can park on it and expand their business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any other discussion? The motion on the floor is to have the second and third reading. Please call the roll.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have the second and third reading.
Ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or safety service director to enter into an amended easement agreement with Regent Realty LLC and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or safety service director to enter into an amended easement agreement with Regent Realty LLC and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes, Madam President, I move that the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to introductory reading of ordinances. The first is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service Safety to enter into a contract under the state bid purchase program for the purchase of 3 2015 Ford Explorer police SUVs outfitted with the proper safety equipment for use by the Norwood Police Division and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mumper.
I move we have all three readings.
Seconded by Mr. Sanker. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service Safety. Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Whittington.
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Now please have three readings. Sorry. That's okay.
Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service Safety to enter into a contract under the state bid purchase program for the purchase of 3 2015 Ford Explorer police SUVs outfitted with the proper safety equipment for use by the Norwood Police Division and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service Safety to enter into a contract under the state bid purchase program for the purchase of 3 2015 Ford Explorer police SUVs outfitted with the proper safety equipment for use by the Norwood Police Division and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service Safety to enter into a contract under the state bid purchase program for the purchase of 3 2015 Ford Explorer police SUVs outfitted with the proper safety equipment for use by the Norwood Police Division and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper.
I move the ordinance be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Braden. Is there any discussion? Mr. Thornberry.
Yes, Madam President. I just want to direct a question to the auditor. For folks who may not have heard, one of the things that helped us make our decision on this was the presentation of how these were going to be paid for and how it's going to be, frankly, quite a while in terms of budget years, time, when we will actually have to be contributing money to this. Can you explain a little bit of the mechanism they proposed?
Mr. Stiff.
Yes, Madam President. The police department and the police chief came up with a way of purchasing these vehicles where at least the first payment, probably the first two payments, would be covered not by general fund money, but by monies outside of the general fund. So these are revenue streams that do not affect the rest of the city. They are police-only revenue streams that go into specific funds that can only be used to buy police equipment. essentially we'd be able to get the vehicles at the end of this year, in 2014. The 2 lease payments covered by the fund that we mentioned would be made in 2015. So the city would not be responsible for making payments on the vehicles until at least 2016. That type of financing at this point in our current financial situation is the only way that we're able to buy new equipment. You know, we've been playing catch up within the general fund in a lot of areas. We are making headway. We are not in a position to make any major purchases at this time. We will be soon, and looking into the future, finding ways of starting a financing package that will take at least 1/5 of the total cost off of the long-term general fund and avoid any payments until 2016 is a good way of financing, a good way of keeping the equipment we need to keep the city operating.
Is there any other discussion? The motion on the floor is to pass the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumford?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to the ordinance which was added, which is an ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2014 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Sanker,
Madam President, I would recommend we have all 3 readings of the ordinance.
seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sanker.
Yes, Madam President, just briefly, we had a finance meeting of which a lot of these changes were discussed. And during that meeting, we did discuss there would be some additional changes to some of the special funds, because we're at a position now where we can see the revenue that it was coming into these funds, true revenue that could be added to the fund and making it available for use. And then there were also some decreases in the appropriation that involved some of the TIF payments and different related funds to the TIFs that we actually just received. I believe it was just within the last couple weeks, our county assessment, which actually gave us a more firm number to actually plug into the appropriations, and that's the reason for there's a number of different special funds that are increased and decreased based upon the actual revenue and also the statement that we had received from the county. So, as a brief explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Sanker. Is there any other discussion?
Madam President, I didn't know if at all if that was the explanation on that, Jim. Okay.
That'd be fine.
Oh,
Mr. Stitt, did
Madam
you need
President,
to? Mr. Stitt, did you need to comment, or are you good?
No, I think that pretty well covered everything we covered in the meeting.
Yes, Mr. Sanker.
I did just want to reiterate again that down on Fund 90, that had zeros there, which was a typo, and it actually would be $273,066.36 is what the actual number would be in there for all this to balance.
And since that's the exhibit, we'll just simply make that change in the exhibit. There's no need to amend the ordinance. Okay, great. So the motion on the floor is to suspend the rules. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumford?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all 3 readings.
Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2014 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2014 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance to change appropriations for the year 2014 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Clark,
Move that the ordinance be passed.
seconded by Mr. Thornberry. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Whittington?
Yes.
Mr. Thornberry?
Yes.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumford?
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to introductory reading of resolutions. First is a resolution declaring it to be the desire of council that Halloween trick-or-treat be celebrated between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Friday, October 31st, 2014, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Thornberry.
Yes, Madam President, I move that we have the first reading of this ordinance.
In its entirety or just the first reading?
Oh, sorry. In its entirety.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. Braden? Is there any discussion? Mr. Thornberry?
I'm going to put this out there for maybe consideration next year, that we consider making it from, don't laugh, 6 p.m. to 7:30. Based on my experiences from the last 5 years of sitting out and giving out candy, that after about 7:15, things tail off considerably. And
Mr. Sanker and I would love to have you come and sit with us up on Indian Mound.
Does
Mount
it
Crest.
continue apace until 8 o'clock?
Mr. Mayor, yeah. Yeah, we have
All right.
lots of people.
I'll
Mr.
just
Bumper,
put it
do you
out
have
there.
them on your street? Yeah.
Maybe that's because that's when because of my generosity, I run out of candy roughly at that time. I'm well known in the neighborhood for handfuls of candy. Never mind.
So the motion on the floor is to have the first reading of the resolution in its entirety. Yes, Mr. Whittington.
Does anybody know, how does this comply with the other community